back to the boat now. This video is going to be on a little bit more detail on this mast raising system on this Com-Pac 23. I've had several people have asked me for more detail about the setup that I'm using, so that's what this is going to be about. But first of all, I want to say, you know, raising a mast on a sailboat, even a small sailboat, there's always a certain amount of risk involved, not only to damaging your mast or your boat, but also, you know, getting hurt yourself or hurting somebody that's standing around or whatever if the mast gets away from you and falls. So I just want to say up front, you know, this video was not a how-to video. This is just a video of how I am working on this boat and how I'm doing it on this boat. This is not a tutorial or anything like that. So you're on your own as far as safety. You know, make sure you think things through and that kind of thing. I don't want to be responsible for anybody getting hurt or anything like that. So that said, I'm going to just try to show a few details of it and a few measurements and that kind of thing. If you have any other questions, you know, just ask and I'll try to follow up on it. This is the I guess you would call it a gin pole, for lack of a better word, that I'm using. In the past, I've used A-frames and gin poles and just all kind of different rigs to try to raise the mast of different heights and different weights. On this Com-Pac 23, the mast probably only weighs about maybe 90 pounds with the rigging and all on it, so in that range. So it's not extremely heavy. And if I remember right, it's about 24 foot tall, 25 foot tall. I have actually raised a Com-Pac 23 mast on multiple times by hand with no type of equipment whatsoever other than just brute force. So it is doable even that way if you're young and strong. Now I'm not young and strong anymore, so now I've got to have help. And what I've done here, this is a piece of this is an 1.5 inch aluminum tubing, 1/8 inch wall thickness, and I think this is T6 aluminum, so it's, you know, not extremely heavy but not too bad. And I've made a little base here just out of some 3/4 inch plywood and some scrap aluminum angle iron that I had laying around. And all this is put together with just random stuff I've had laying around. So I made it so that the base can pivot a little bit so that it can help conform to the deck of the boat, you know, at the base of the mast. Gives it just a little bit of movement there. And what I did there, you may notice right there, there's like a slot for that bolt right here. Is like a slot so that it's got a little bit of up and down movement to it. I did not slot the aluminum tube. I left that just a snug fit bolt. It's a 5/16 bolt with a 5/16 hole, so just a tight fit. That way this doesn't wallow out too bad. The plywood here is just for a spacer. These little brackets right here is so I can put a lanyard around the base of the mast, or around the tabernacle, if you will, just to kind of hold it in place so it can't accidentally kick out backwards or whatever. And while I'm talking about the base, I've got it notched out so that when the mast comes up, it will clear as it's coming up. So this is cut out so that the mast can pivot up and clear all of that. I do have some marine carpet on the bottom of it to protect the deck of the boat. And then onto the winch that I'm using. This is like an automatic clutch winch that'll go either direction, and when you let go of the handle, it locks. So it's self-locking, automatic locking. And this one is only rated for like 350 pounds, so it's pretty small. Let's see if I can get a close-up over there. This is made by Dutton Lanson Company, and it's a 350 pound capacity, and it looks like DLB 350A is like a model number on it, and it's just bolted, you know, to the tube. I'm currently using 1/4 inch Dyneema that's got the double braid sheathing over it, you know, to help it for not abrade, or better suited for abrasion resistance, I guess you'd say. And I've only got enough line on here just to do what I'm using it for and no more, because I want to keep the diameter of the spool here as small as possible to give me the best leverage. At the top here, there is a sheave inside of here, and this is just notched out with a 5/16 bolt running through it. And then I've got a stainless eyelet there, eye bolt, and these are for my port and starboard lines that holds it plumb. And then on the other side there is another eye bolt for the bow line that goes up to where the foot of the head sail connects. That's where this line here connects. So that's just kind of a quick thing about that. And as far as the height of this thing, again, this is set up for a Com-Pac 23. The height of it is it's about 7 foot 1 inch overall. And my requirements that I set for this was I had to be able to reach without climbing on any kind of a ladder or stool or anything to disconnect it from the mast. I wanted to be able to just reach up it to like my maximum height and disconnect it. I also wanted it to be light enough and small enough so that I could store it in the boat if I needed to. For example, if I was going to be taking a trip with the boat where I needed to lower the mast in the water to go underneath a fixed bridge, for example, you know, I could have it on the boat. So I'm going to set it up on the boat and just kind of show you what up there how it works. Okay, so I've got it rigged up on the boat to lift the mast, and just to show you real quickly here how it fits. This yellowish line here is just to keep that tied to the little tabernacle, or pivot step there, mast step. And I could probably improve that for sure, but it works. I may need to move these to that back bolt to get these clear of all of this. But you can see why I had to round out that back and move this further, back a bit. As this mast comes up, it has to have that clearance, to drop in that hole. And you can see how I made the aluminum reinforcing pieces here that just kind of line up with that bracket. And then the winch is right here at a comfortable height to where I can reach it. The port and starboard lines that run from this, they attach to a shackle that I used. I've actually got a shackle that goes through that turnbuckle in there to give me a place to anchor that line on either side. And it has to go in the stern lower shroud. And the reason for that is you need to spread the triangle of these lines apart a bit so that gym pole won't fall forward. And these are not crazy tight, they're kind of loose. And then again, you can see there where I've just got it through a little shackle there. And then the front line is just hooked where you would typically hook the foot of your sail, down here on that the furthest back hole in that chain plate deal there. And you can see I don't have a lot of excess line on here, just enough so that I can keep it, from coming undone. Of course, it's tied as well, but that keeps that diameter of this where it winds up really small, which gives you better leverage. Well, by doing this one that's 7 foot tall here, which when I'm standing right here I can reach. So I can reach to be able to disconnect it from the mast without having to stand on anything other than just up here on the cabin top. And then that gives me about a 45-degree angle lift, which is, you get much flatter than that, and it really starts to put a lot of stress on everything. Your lifting force has to be much greater if you get that angle too flat, because you're pushing the mast toward here, under compression in that direction. And believe it or not, I've seen more than a couple of masts actually shear out right here, the screws, whenever they're mounted with just screws, when people are lifting them with winches or whatever, just shear out the screws right here and the mast shoot forward and fall. I have seen that, I know at least twice that I can remember, and maybe more than that, and I know most of you will say it's not correct, but it's the way I've done it, and I won't argue the point with you. But my mast base there, it is through bolted. They're not large bolts, but it is through bolted. And I know that from the factory they came with screws in them and not through bolts. And I know most people say that you should put them in with screws so that it can rip out if it needs to. But after seeing a few masts rip out while the mast was being raised and tearing things up and people getting hurt, it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. So it's through bolted, and I did it on purpose, and I'm not going to change it. That said, this whole mechanism right here is thin enough sheet metal to where, you know, if the mast did come down in a blow, it's going to almost guaranteed going to rip out of that sheet metal stainless bracket there anyway, or either shear off the bolts. And even if it tears out the top of the cabin top here, I just had to redo that anyway, where it had rotted out from the previous owner drilling a hole, not sealing it. So it's not the end of the world all the way around. I just prefer to have it bolted. I had on hand this like a whisker pole or spinnaker pole bracket, and that's put in with 4 rivets. But then I've got it right now, it's got a tripled 1/4 inch Dyneema wrapped around it tight as well. So if the rivets happen to fail, and so far they haven't, and have lifted it a few times now, you know, that line is going to carry the weight. And as far as how far up that is to the mast, see, that's at 82.5 inches from the base of the mast. So roughly, you know, just shy of 7 foot to where it's mounted to the mast. And then from the base of the mast to the top of the sheave right there would be the same dimension. So it's a 45-degree angle, what I'm lifting here. Now, with a large percentage of the mast cantilevering out beyond this lifting point, that means that you've got to have a lot more lifting force than just that 90 pounds or whatever the mast weighs. And then not only that, but you're also, as you're lifting, is pushing the mast that way. So you've got that force that you've got to overcome as well. So in addition to the weight of the mast, you've got that compression force going that direction that you're overcoming, and as well as, you know, lifting that excess weight that's cantilevered way out. So this 350-pound winch is probably would be absolute minimum for this. Honestly, you know, a little heavier wouldn't hurt, but this one does work. And like I say, I've done it a few times now, and I haven't had an issue with it. I've just made a couple of tweaks to improvement, but it's working. But it did meet all of my parameters that I was trying to do. Like I say, having it small and light, portable, I can stick inside the boat and leave it if need be, where I can disconnect it without having to climb up on a ladder on deck or anything like that. And I don't have to worry about halyards to disconnect it, to pull down or anything like that. So now, because my trailer is sitting on the ground, dirt that's not level, the trailer is leaning over slightly toward starboard, and so when you start lifting the mast, it wants to walk over until it finds its true plumbness, because the boat is not level, you know, port to starboard. So that's going to be a normal thing, you know, for your mast to swing one way or the other until it finds its true plumb line with your rig or whatever. But once it gets to that point, you know, unless you've got a really strong wind, you know, it should kind of stay there. But like I say, that'll support itself right there, just letting go of the winch, because the winch has got an automatic clutch in it, and you can just change directions and let it back down, or raise it back up. One thing I will say that you want to be careful of is you don't want to get it bouncing. You know, you want to go smooth and steady, very even lift, because you do have so much cantilevered out that, you know, you could potentially, you know, break your mast right there at that lifting point. So you do want to be very careful to not get it, you know, bouncing up and down hard, whether you're lifting or lowering it, either one. And one thing that you could do, and I may do, is fix me up some type of a spreader on the bottom side of the mast there, and have it incorporated in that lifting point there, that tie-off point. Just something that's incorporated into my lanyard that I've got wrapped and tied around the mast, that'll come down when I untie it. And that would just spread out that hard point there, that lifting point, maybe for, you know, like a 2-foot long little piece of channel or something. I do have a wear point up here where my sheath is a little bit too small for the width of the tubing, and so this line on this side only is going to be chafing right there. You can see it right there. That's a problem that I've got to fix right away. Just a larger sheave would do that. I did change out that sheave to a larger one, and so now I've got clearance up there where I had a problem with it, slight chafing against the aluminum tube. So I opened up that slot a little bit and put in a bigger sheave. Solve that problem. Just to give me a way to put a little extra tension on the side lines, I just rigged up just a real quick, I guess you'd call it, it's almost like a barber haul or something, I guess you'd call it, where I can just take and pull that down like that, and I'll probably replace that little hook there, eye hook, with maybe put a shackle on there or something where it won't pop off. But that lets me be able to put a little bit of more tension. And then I've just added a cleat right here. And this takes very little effort here at all. I mean, I can literally use one finger and raise the mast. Very little effort, and then you can see it just locks and stays in place. And then to raise it, you just start turning. Lifts right up. And it takes about 2.5 minutes at a slow, steady pace to raise that mast all the way up. Now, obviously, that doesn't include getting everything connected and all that. That's just raising it. But and you can stop if you need to get something disconnected, you know, untangled or whatever. And you can see I can use hands-free if needs be. Now, always, you know, have somebody helping you if you have that option. But it just has a tendency to just want to hang straight down, even with the wind blowing, unless it's really windy. But I usually keep a hand up here on this line to control that, and then to let it back down, you just turn the winch in the opposite direction and down it goes. I'm sure there's lots of ways that this can be improved, but just for the, you know, the first prototype for this particular one turned out okay. But anyway, I appreciate you watching. Thanks for watching, and subscribe if you will. I'm always doing something on boats.